Hello, my friends. Today I'm going to look at this product called Euro Bedroom. Before you switch off, I'm not looking at it as a review. I'm looking at it because it's one of the worst designed products I've ever seen. And there's an awful lot that we can learn by looking at the way that this product has been designed. Now, before I go any further, my aim is not to bash the manufacturer of this or the designer of this product, Digital Lab 3D. This is obviously a very early product. If we look at their store on DAS, you can see absolutely dozens of really fantastic products, and this bedroom is the fifth product they ever made. So it's not really to have a go at them, but merely to show some bad features of their product. So, for example, look, here's one of their more modern ones, the Devil's Gate, and that looks absolutely excellent. I don't have any of their modern stuff, but it's obviously they've evolved considerably since this product. So let's go to Euro Bedroom here. So there are absolutely loads of things wrong with this. The first thing is, if you look at this image here of the Euro bedroom, and then we look at the rendered image of Euro bedroom, which is here, nothing out the window. So it costs almost nothing to put a photograph on a plane and shove that out the window and have a bit of self-illumination. But instead they've used this image here to sell it, but they don't actually include that image. So the first thing you're going to have to do is any camera angle this side of the bed, you're going to need to put something there to look out the window. And you can tell it's not just that I've got something wrong with it, because if you look at the manifest here, you'll see that there's no mention of the image out the window. But let's look at some other things. So the lighting here is really excellent. There's obviously a light in this scene over here in both of these renders, and yet there are no hard-coded lights with the scene. So if we actually go to the scene here, this is what you get, and there are literally no lights in the scene. If you look here, you've got 5 preset cameras, which I like, but the preset cameras are there to address another problem. But here's the product. So it's Euro bedroom, and then it's got grouped into that master object, so as you can move everything together, these objects here. And there's so much wrong with this. Let's start with the bed. One of the most common things you're going to do if you have a scene that you want to use often, let me switch to the perspective view, perspective camera. Here we go. So we're inside. Is okay, camera, perspective. Oh, right, okay, I can't change perspective camera. I'll create a new camera. Right, so I've created a camera. Look at it from my camera. Zoom inside. Right. So the fact that I'm messing about here with cameras should give you a hint straight away. So I'm inside the room with the camera, and if I go to the camera I've just created, and okay, cameras here, and I change the focal length so that I can see into the room more. I could change the frame width here. I'll do that, say 40. And then that also just helps to show me more of the scene inside. So before we talk about the bed, I want to talk about the box that it's in. So obviously it's common enough. You've got a room, 4 walls, ceiling and a floor. And if I grab this material grabber, you'll see that you can't grab any of the walls individually. If I just choose a selector here, you'll see that there's just the room, and then all of these walls are all one solid block. It's basically a rectangle with everything inside it. So what does that do? It means that you can't put a camera out here for long focal lengths, and so you get some weird stuff happening. So that to me is unforgivable. That's old school lazy, that is. So the first thing is every wall, ceiling and room in the scene should be individually selectable. So in your 3D software, you create this shape, but then you save the walls separately in place rather than saving as a solid block. And that brings us to the bed. So the bed also is a single solid object. Here, I select the bed. I can't select the mattress separately. I can't select the pillows. I can't select the headboard. Now, I can texture these individually. The thing is, if you have a scene like this, it's quite a nice scene. It renders quite nicely. But if you have a scene like this where you want to use it often, you'll often want to change the color of the components individually. So we go to Surfaces tab, and here's bed, and you see the leather backboard and the leather floor, the leather support, one object, leather bed mattress, that's the top, pillows and white pillows, I don't know what, oh right, white pillows and bed stand, so that's a separate object here. So leather for background, bed stands, mattress and pillows. One thing I do like is that the creator has named each of these materials separately, and then you can go in and individually change the properties of those materials. However, supposing I've got a scene where there's a couple laying on a bed and we want these pillows to be here, or somebody's got a bad back so they have one underneath their pillow. We can't do that because, again, this has been saved as a single object. Now, there's absolutely no reason to do this. In every single 3D program, there's an option called detach. And what that does is you take it, they may well have created this as a single object so that it can be moved around easily, but they could achieve that just by having the pillows and the mattress and everything grouped underneath the bed. That would achieve the same result. But what this person has done is sacrificed the ability to change these. So why would you want to change them? As I just said, you might want to move the pillows. You might want to have the mattress separate to the underlying mattress stand, because you might want to do some deformations. And as it stands, if you do a really heavy deformation on the mattress, it'll also distort this stand here. Okay, so that's one thing. Well, two things, because we've got the thing outside the window and we've got the walls, so I can't count that. Three things. Okay, so we've got these books over here, so that's a nice idea, nice prop, and I like something else that they did. Let me bring this in and undock it. So we've got here's the full scene, which is nice, and then we've got zero props. So these props load into the scene in the zero position, and you can add them to other scenes. So you can use this bed in another bedroom scene that you might have. Okay, that's a really nice thing. However, these books, again, a single object. So it's cool that they're kind of set on the nightstand here, slightly off center. But what if I want this one turned round, you know, I suppose I want that invisible and I only want two books there. What if I want this book turned 180 degrees so I can see the title? You can't do it because it's been saved as a single object. And that brings me on to the bookcase, which is, to my mind, the most egregious error. There's a couple of things going on here. So as you can imagine, the bookcase, rather than being lots of individual books, they've just created a single book object here. And if I grab the parameters and Z move, they all move together. Okay, so that's convenient for repositioning them, but it really what have I just done there? Okay, it really sucks when you want to, for example, change the title. Supposing you've got a mystery going on and you wanted a title on one specific book. Also, even though they talk about the high resolution textures, look at how crappy these textures are. So if I get one of my renders, let me see. No, okay, I'll render now with the iRay renderer, and you'll see that these books are really crappy text, really low resolution texture. Also, something even more egregious, if I go back to filament render while I just move around, look at this bottom shelf here of books. So this book is the Blake the Complete Writings, whatever these are, I don't really care. Look at the low quality here. So I'll just make that render so you get the full quality. And you'll see what's happened here is that the UV map for these books has been poorly done. So these books use I can't remember the name of it now. I think it's oh no, there's a special name when you have when you have multiple things and they're unwrapped onto a single sheet, rather than, so for example, we could have saved this as a single rectangle with beveled edges, and then UV mapped that single rectangle, then duplicated that rectangle at different sizes in the bookshelf, but every book could have its own 360-degree texture. But instead, let me show you what they've done. If you go into the surfaces and choose books, I don't know if this is the right books, books 1, we can see here, here's the map for books 1, and I'll open it now in this, and you'll see that this is just a single document projected onto those kind of rectangles. And you'll see here that, oh, where's it gone? That Blake book there, let's plus. See, that's kind of, I mean, you can see more of it here, but you can't see the whole thing. And in the actual scene, it doesn't even map properly. So that was just laziness. But to be honest, I mean, I can see the benefits of having a single object which has all the books. Very, very old school, but it's just far more convenient if you just had a single rectangle, duplicate it across each of these, and then each of the books has its own UV mapped material, which then means that you can change your own materials. You could grab one of these books out for one of your characters, leave it on the nightstand, leave it on the bed, whatever you like, and it can tell a bit more of a story. Now, let's talk about something else now. Let me turn that off. That's incredibly slow if I do IRA. Lighting. So, here's our scene, and if you see their render in their advert, beautifully lit, it's got these 6 suspension lights casting a light downwards. We've got lovely light coming in. We've got general illumination here. So that's a bit of bounce lighting coming through the window, and we've also got something up here. And if we look at the scene, you'll see that there's actually no lights in the scene whatsoever. So how have they achieved light? Well, they've gone into these lights here, and let me just choose here, side table, books, lights, figurine, books. Okay, I can't even find it. Maybe it's a child of this. And if I do surfaces, I'm looking for lights or LED. Bedroom, here we go. So this bedroom is the master object that has the furniture and the lights and loads of other stuff. Again, a really, really annoying way of doing it, but at least some of these are separate. And we choose LED light, and that's these lights here. And you'll see if we scroll down that there is an emission. Emission value is self-illumination. So rather than choosing a light, you choose emission, and then you turn the emission up and give it normal light properties. And what happens, that's good for putting on a bulb, and then the bulb shines out of here. Not quite as good as a spotlight, but it has different circumstances. So if we go under here, I'm sure that we'll be able to see. There you go. So they're LED bulbs underneath. So that's quite nice. Let's just IMA render that a sec, and you can see that effect there. That's quite nice. However, because there's no other lights in the scene, you get one of two things happens. Let me just show you. So this render, I left the default here so that the auto headlamp in the general settings of render, if there's no scene lights, the auto headlamp comes on. And because these are self-illuminated or emission lights, they don't recognize in the scene as lights. So that activates this setting. So then you get the headlamp setting, and this is kind of drab looking, very flat looking light. So what you'd want to do is to add some manual scene lights, or else what you get is this. And you can see, so I turned that setting off, that headlamp setting, and so what I've got now is just these ambient lights, and this is quite nice. They're not really illuminating enough, but you know, This is why I prefer spots to ambient illumination or emission. This is the same in Poser, by the way, guys. I'm showing it in DAZ Studio, but in Poser, exactly the same things apply. There's plenty of products in Poser which are designed badly like this as well. In Poser, it's called ambient illumination. In DAZ, it's called emission, but they amount to the same thing. And I think in Poser's physical surface node, it's also called emission. Excuse me. So by not having seen light, and I think any time you do a scene, you should do lights and cameras. If possible, you should even have multiple materials, but DAZ really sucks for that because they want to upsell you materials. But for a scene like this, they don't upsell you materials because nobody ever seems to buy material. You know, if you buy clothes, there's always at least one extra pack of materials or even hair. But when it comes to a set like this, you never seem to get extra materials. So I think it would have been a nice touch to have different pillow colors or whatever. It's not really super difficult to do. For example, if I go to this pillow here and I'm just going to go to my let me see, I'm working off screen to my shader presets. Let me pull that on screen so as you can see. Don't link. So now I'm in my shader preset, so I can load some of my shaders. Let's choose fabric here. And what fabric do we want? Well, just so it's obvious, we'll do green silk, okay? So I just need to select, I'm going to double click that off the screen, but I need to make sure that I've selected the pillows. So that's, what's that, a child of bed, isn't it? So bed, surfaces, white pillows, but now I'm going to click green satin. And there you go. So I can, to a certain extent, change the look of things myself manually. But if I tried to do that with the books, obviously the books have just got a single map that applies to all of them, so that wouldn't work. All I could do is change the base color of them all or the base pattern. I could load that book map into Photoshop and manually improve it, increase the resolution, put my own books in, but that's a lot harder to do than if it had just been designed properly. So yeah, there's a whole catalogue of stuff there. As I say, it's not really to attack the creator. Some of my early stuff's not all that magnificent either. So you know, I recognise we've all got a journey here, but if you're creating your own products, never have a building where you can't make the walls invisible. Always include lights. They did include cameras, but to be honest, and you should, but I'd sooner have walls that can be invisible than cameras to overcome the fact that you can't do that. If you're going to have a window, make sure there's a scene outside the window. If you're going to have multiple objects like the books, make them individually selectable and a high resolution properly UV map texture. That was just lazy with that book at the bottom. When it comes to furniture, make sure that all of the parts are separately selectable, not just a solid object like this. But there's enough. Even here, this bookcase, it could have been this separately movable. So suppose I wanted something to be in the light of the window. It would be nice if that bookcase could be moved to the side, but it can't. You can see there's remarkably few actual objects that are individually selectable. Yeah, hopefully learn from that, guys, when you're creating your own stuff, especially if you create commercial stuff. A lot of these mistakes were common back in the day, not so much now. And in fairness, this is on sale now for $5. So if you're just going to use, have a camera over in this corner pointing this way into the room, don't get too close to the books. You don't need to change these, and you can have a nice scene on the bed. You could still morph the bed to have people's body weight. There's no bed morph in this, I don't think. Let's have a look. Bed parameters. No morphs. I mean, that's another fairly serious thing. If you're going to have furniture, you have to have morphs for people to sit on it. It's just absolutely essential, I would have had a morph here for one person, a morph here for another, and a morph down the middle for one person sleeping alone. Just a weight morph, in the surface of the bed. Yeah, even now that's hit and miss. And again, with the pillows, if somebody's head's on that, they're not going to stand up like they're inflated and made of rubber, are they? They're going to bend as the head goes underneath it. What you could do is grab the morph tool and do it manually. Let me see, where is it? I don't use this very often. Can't even remember what it's called, to be honest. No, can't remember. But there's a morph tool in the Pro version of Poser, and you could just manually draw morphs onto there. Anyway, guys, that's enough to give you some ideas. I will speak to you later.